Alright, back again, Luke here. And today, what I thought we could do is a little bit of some controller refurbishing. And if you take a look here, this is a Geo AES controller that has seen better days. The ball on top there, you can see it's cracked and kind of filled with grime. You can see that the buttons here are pretty dirty. It looks like it hasn't been used in a very long time. So what we're going to do today is we're going to try and clean this thing up, make it a little bit nicer and a little bit newer, and see how it goes. But the first thing that we're going to want to do is remove the screws in the back here. Now, just to save on time, what I've done is I've removed these. Underneath these pads here, there are 1, 2, 3, and 4 screws. There's also a 5th one in the middle. Once you remove all of these, the back part will come off. And it may be a little bit tight here, so just bear with me a little bit. You'll also notice that the cord in the back here has a bit of a clip, so that'll just slide up usually, and our backing can come off, and you can see the nice mess that's inside this one. Sometimes you'll find all sorts of nasty stuff inside there, so don't be too surprised when you open up a controller if you try and repair yours, or even the main reason why I decided to make this video is because I was on, I was on the Neo Geo for Life page on Facebook, and somebody had actually had a question about trying to remove the top part of the ball on the joystick, and I had kind of left a message there as to how to remove it one way. I figured I would show that so others can try and remove it. Sometimes getting this ball off here can be really difficult. It feels like it's on there with like permanent, glue of some sort, and it just won't come off. But it actually will come off. You just need to apply some pressure. There are 2 ways that you can remove this. One way that I like to do is I'll use a piece of rubber, and then using a pair of vice grips, grip onto here and then twist off. That's one way to do it. The other way you can do it is on the bottom here, you'll see there's a very small stub, and this is for the bottom part of the shaft. And by grabbing a hold of this one here and then twisting on the top, you can also do that. Now, you can't use your fingers, so once again you have to use your vice grips. The main reason why you have to remove this ball here is because without removing the ball, you can't remove the rest of the joystick. And if you can't remove the rest of the joystick, then you can't really clean around the inside of that. So we have to remove that as well. What we'll do is get our handy vice grips here. It can be any size. I mean, if you have a larger pair of vice grips, it'll make it a lot easier to grip onto this. But what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to adjust it to just a little bit tighter than the outside of this. And what I like to do is crimp on it to where you can see the line here. Keep it in a horizontal position so you're not crimping down and crushing it. You could use a flathead screwdriver, but I think it's a little bit more difficult. So as you can see there, so we've got this all clamped on. Now, while you have control of this one here, or hold of this one, you're going to want to twist, and like I said, it's probably going to take some time, but it will come off. And this one is on there very snug. That's starting to free up a little bit. And there you go. So you can get this off like that. It just, it might take some force. And yeah, this one definitely was on there. It's been on there for, a long time. So don't feel too discouraged if you first start to, try to loosen this and you feel like, wow, that's really on there. It feels like it's got some glue on it. Normally it should be okay. If your hands are too slippery too, what you can get is a pair of rubber gloves, and that'll also help you to take this top off. So now that we got the top part of the ball off, you can see all the cracks in it. That's something that happens with all the Neo Geo AES joysticks, so not a big deal. I think, instead of just replacing the ball, we're just gonna scrub it up. We'll scrub out all the inside cracks and things like that. I like to kind of keep these things as authentic as possible, but that's just myself. And you can see underneath there, there's still a lot of dirt and grime. We'll be removing all of that. The next step here is to remove these screws here. around the joystick area and the buttons. So I'll take the screws out for the buttons here. And luckily there's only like 4 of these. You can tell that no one's ever been in here. These things just they have a little cracking sound when you go to undo them. Alright, so now that we have the first part for our buttons off, you can see inside here too there might be some rust, which is something if you want to try and take care of, you can do that as well. But each one of these buttons will just pop right off. And we're going to clean each one of these individually, because if you look around the outside edges of them, they are pretty nasty. You know, dirty and well used. So we'll put those aside. Next thing we'll do is we'll remove our start and select button, which is just one screw here. And as before, we'll take these ones right off there. And we'll probably, you know, go back and try and clean this up around here as well. And finally, there are 4 screws that hold the joystick part in. There's 1, 2, 3, and 4. We'll just remove these 4, and that should get our joystick to come out here. Two more. And just one more. And you can see it just coming up. One other thing I like to do here, which I totally forgot about, is marking the position of the joystick. So when you go to put this thing back together, you don't get confused as to which way it goes in. So one thing you can do is just with a black magic marker, you can just put an arrow like so. If you don't want the arrow to be on there permanently, you can also take it off. But as long as you have that arrow on there, you know that the joystick is going back up that way. So you don't have to put it in or wind up worrying about putting it backwards. I don't think you can really do it, but yeah, if by any chance you get confused. If you decide to go any step further and try to clean up the micro switches and things like that, then it gets more complex. What you have to do is remove this C-clamp on the inside here. And then there's a spring-loaded plastic piece on the inside. The whole top part of the shaft here will remove as well. What we'll do is we'll just clean this up on the inside. We'll probably put some grease on the inside here. You can pack in some grease on the inside of these small cavities, and that'll usually help things out a lot. But if you do decide to do any other final processes here, if you take this off, be prepared to mark each one of these micro switches, because if you don't mark those and you start moving them around, then you're going to be in trouble. So it'll take you a while to do the hunting of which one's up, down, left, and right. Here you can see the top part here. This is a dust cover. You can see it has like a piece of hair floating around in there. It's kind of nasty, but we'll take that off, and then the rest of our unit, all the parts and everything, should be able to come free. We'll put these aside somewhere. Put those over there for right now. We'll come back to those and clean those up in a bit. And what we're going to do next is we're going to take our case, and we're going to take all of our plastic parts and try and scrub them up. With this top part here, what we'll do is probably use a very, very light, wet magic eraser around most of this here, just to kind of scrub up some of the bigger scratch marks and things like that. You don't want to use a dry one, because a dry one will just eat holes in it. It'll create really bad flat spots on it, and it'll look horrible. Even wet, there'll be some times where it'll actually lift up some of the or it'll smooth out some of the texture here, so you actually have some smooth spots. But I mean, it's either that or it's these scuff marks, so you have to go one way or the other. One thing I totally don't recommend though is don't use the the what is it, magic eraser around the logo, because it'll erase it completely. So try and avoid that area as much as possible. Even if this area contains a few scratches or so, just leave it. Maybe just go around the outer edges. If you have to rip the magic eraser, or if you have to cut it in order so you can do that, that's one thing I'd recommend. But don't go scrubbing around this area. You'll remove the logo completely, and it'll be a big disaster. For the other parts, like the pads and the select button and the SNK logo, these seem to stay on there quite a bit better, so you can go over this area a little bit more. But once again, you know, I wouldn't recommend sitting there and trying to continuously go over the same spot. Just try and get it clean as you can, and then just go from there. So what we'll do next is we'll take this stuff into the sink, and we're going to scrub it up, and we'll be back in a little bit. Alright, so here we are in the sink, and I figured we could do this on camera so you guys can take a look and see how this thing, how it goes. But what we'll do first is we'll probably do the smaller parts. We'll just get those out of the way, and then we'll go with the bigger top and bottom. But first, we are going to take these parts out of the sink. Whee! There goes the top part. You can see it much better, you know, in this lighting as to how, you know, scratched up and dirty it is. But so we'll remove that right now. Actually, you can see some of the remnants that it's already left here in the sink. And don't worry, if you're somebody who doesn't like to wash dishes, and you're probably not going to like to do this stuff, you will definitely see the color of the water change when you do this kind of stuff, as it is quite nasty. In some cases, it might just, some of this stuff is really, really dirty, and when you go to kind of scrub it up like this, you'll find that the water is really, really murky, and it looks completely disgusting, and it's almost hard to even put your hands in there and try and clean the stuff up. Those are the worst times. So what we're going to do here is we're going to get our trusty, well-used and nasty toothbrush here. This thing's all just covered with, you know, whatever gunk from over the years of use. But you can just use an old toothbrush, put a little bit of soap on the end of it, and what we're going to do is, you can see our kind of top there, just going to scrub it up and remove all of the dirt that is on this. You can kind of see there. Wash this off. I'll do another washing of these again once I get all the parts done, but this is the kind of preliminary one. Once I kind of get it scrubbed up, I'll put it aside here. We'll go around each one of these buttons here, around the edges, and try and clean these up. And if you have multiple controllers, things like that, you might have a lot of parts, so just be careful. One thing, if you do use multiple controllers, or you start washing multiple controllers here, don't ever let your wife catch you washing the balls in the sink. She'll flip out. I'm sure that's common sense though. So, there you go. There's the second one, looking a little bit nicer. And the third one, I'm just fooling around here. Hey, Luke's repair videos. He talks about washing his balls in the sink. Excellent. Great advice. Don't do it. So, third one there. And these ones kind of have a couple of layers. You can even get on the inside here. These ones are actually pretty nice there, but let these ones dry out a little bit. Sometimes they might get a little bit of water on the inside, but there's that. We'll put a little bit more soap on here. We'll leave the ball for last. Go around here and scrub this up. That one's a lot nicer. Nice and shiny. And then our start and select buttons. Yeah, don't worry, this is from like grease or something. It's just from discoloration. It's not really dirty. People are like, oh no, it's so gross and disgusting. It's been used a lot and discolored. Alright, there's our next one. And finally, with this one here, we're going to want to use a lot of soap just to try and get inside all of the crevices and things like that. So put a bit more on this, and we're going to go around the entire thing. And like I said, you know, some people, they just rather replace the top part of the ball here. I kind of like it. It gives it a little bit of character. And still an original part, so try and keep it as original as I possibly can. And unless the ball is completely shattered or something like that, then I won't. I'll just replace it. Usually a toothbrush will get inside the fine places and the fine spaces of these really, really well. And you can see right there that, well, maybe you can see, that even though the cracks are still there, the dirt and the grime that was on the inside is gone. It's probably kind of hard to see, but the lines are still there. The inside is much, much cleaner. So I'll go over this a couple more times, maybe. And later on we'll dump it one more time into some hot soapy water and let it set for a little while, just to make sure everything's out of it. And that should be that. Half of this video I feel is going to be probably spent in the sink. Here. Alright, well, so that's that for right now. Next thing we're going to do is try and dump this water. This stuff is pretty nasty. Plus it gets a little bit cold too, so try and use some warm water with this. Next thing we'll do is we'll just go with the bottom part here. You can see there's a scratch or some scratch marks along the bottom. The bottom part's not something that we're going to worry about too much, but we'll try and see about getting it a little bit better, since it is going to be always on a surface of some sort. It might be more prone to scratches than the top part. We'll just kind of run some water over it. And have a bit of our magic eraser here. We're going to soak this. And like I said, you don't want to do this while it's dry, because you'll wind up rubbing parts off of it. So, but we're going to go over this kind of lightly, so you guys can see probably the beginning right there. So this line here. No telling if this will even come off. Okay, it's kind of coming off there. You can see right here. And it's just about off, just a little bit more. Alright, well, you can see it's pretty much off there. Now there is going to be some discoloration here. That's something that's going to start to show once this dries, but that can't be helped, unfortunately. With this stuff here, at least by taking these really discolored spots off, it'll make it look a lot better. So we'll try and get on this one here. Some of them might come off much easier than others. These ones on the bottom seem a bit worse. We'll just kind of lightly go over the bottom here, try and remove any fine scratches. You'll notice a lot more once this dries. And before you go to put this thing aside, make sure that you rinse it again. If not, you'll have some kind of remnants from the sponge, and it'll leave like trails, and you don't want that. There's another small spot there. Try to get that off. So that's pretty good. along the sides as well. You know, go over this a little bit, very lightly. Once it does dry again, if you want to go over it again, you can do that. But I think for the most part here, maybe there's a couple more. You can sometimes see reflections of the stuff when you put it in water as well. And then on the inside here, we'll get a little bit of soap and try and rinse this around on the inside here just to clean it up a bit. This can be done with a toothbrush as well, an old toothbrush, but we're just going to do this to try and get all of the spots where we can get, at least with your hands. And then we'll probably use our toothbrush here just to go around the insides a little bit more. Any parts that are a bit more difficult, the side parts here. And once we rinse this one out, have this one completely cleaned up, we'll set this one aside and we'll let this one dry out. But you can see right here that it's definitely come a lot better, or it's gotten a lot better here just by slightly removing some of those scratch marks. There's still maybe a couple more that we'll go over, but probably not going to worry about it, like I said, too much, since this will be on the bottom. But the top part we're going to worry a lot more about. So we'll put that on the side here, and we'll come to the main event. This is the top part, and like I said, you can see the bigger scratch marks over here and on top there. We're going to avoid this area at all costs. We don't want to do anything on this part here, but we'll put a little bit of water on here. Sometimes if you put too much water on too, you'll wind up losing where the scratch marks are, so it might be better just to put it on here first. And once again, you don't want to rub too hard, and you don't want to keep rubbing in the same spot for too long, because it'll wear away a lot of the top part here. Now at first, if you want to, if it looks really, really dirty, you can go over it with some soap and water. But I'm just very lightly, very, very lightly rubbing this over. And you'll notice too, you can see some of the dirt and stuff coming off of here. But if you rub, if you apply a lot of pressure to it, you will wind up taking off a lot more. So you can see here, I'm avoiding the logo as much as possible, trying to go around it, but not over it. And with the holes here for the buttons, what you're probably going to want to do is using your toothbrush here to get around the insides a little bit better. And so what I'll do here is I'll finish up going over this top part here. I'll go over the insides, and then we'll show you what it's like when we go back into the other room. So I'll be back in a little bit. Alright, so while our parts are drying here from the top part, what we'll do is we'll take a look at the joystick area. And since we do have some time here, I figure I'll show you how to take this joystick part apart, and so you can get at the inside here if anyone decides they want to do some re-greasing or some cleaning around this area. First thing what we're going to do is we're going to go on the bottom here, and as you can see this clip here, and with this clip it will come out, but it requires a little bit of pressure. So what I recommend using is a kind of very small, fine flathead screwdriver, and this might spin on you, so you can hold the top part with your hand, and you just want to kind of twist a little bit outward, and you'll see that the pin is about ready to come out. Be careful, kind of grab it with 2 fingers and then lightly remove it, because this top part is spring-loaded, so keep this somewhere where it'll be out of the way. This is another piece here. What this does is it activates the different micro switches. So You want to keep this out of the way. You can also try and clean this up a bit if you'd like. You'll see there's some scratch marks on that. And our spring, like so. And the top part of our joystick will now come out. And you'll see that on the bottom here, this one's actually quite dry and a bit sticky. So what we're going to do is we'll clean that up. We'll also clean up this post as well. Try and polish it a little bit. Maybe if you don't want to remove the paint or the coloring to it, probably it's a good idea just to use like maybe magic eraser or something. If you want to try and get it, if it has a lot of rust on it, you could use some steel wool. But there's also one on the very inside here, and you can see it kind of moving around, and that's another one if you want to take out and try and clean it. What you'll have to do for this one is you're going to have to remove the bottom part here, which has all the micro switches on it. Now, I mentioned this once before, but when you start removing this bottom part here, you have to be very careful, because if you accidentally start like moving the micro switches around, you're gonna have a difficult time trying to figure out what's up, down, left, and right. So just be really careful as I drop my screwdriver. Take this one out here, this one out here. I'll lightly take this off here so you guys can see what I mean, but and remember, you have your directions here, so which way is up. That's another thing that you want to probably take into consideration, because these guys will start popping out. As you can see here, they're just kind of laying in here. They fit on the top part of this part here. This is what keeps them in place. So let's see if we can maybe flip this around, get these guys to sit back down there. This is the more tricky part. So these are all going to go flying everywhere. You can see that right now. Let's see. This one here. This one goes here. Here, 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 and here. And there goes our bottom part. So, as you can see, once by taking this out here, you're kind of asking for a lot of trouble when you go to do that. There's posts on the bottom here as well that keep them in place, but if you're planning on cleaning out this bottom part and getting all this goo and gunk out of the way, you're going to want to take this off. So since we have this off here, I figure what we'll do is we'll take this into the bathroom as well, and we'll clean this out, get this all nice and cleaned up, and then we'll put it back together, and that should be okay. So what I'm going to do here is I'll pause the camera, we'll go and clean this up, and then we'll come back and try to reassemble everything. Be back in a little bit. Okay, so as you can see here, I've cleaned this up, cleaned off all the parts, the bottom parts nice and clean, as well as the inside pieces. These are all cleaned up as well, so everything's in a nice new fashion. Now the most difficult part is going to be to put this thing back together without putting things in a different order. So what we're going to do here is first I'm just going to apply a little bit of some mechanical grease here, and this is going to be used to hold the bottom part of this cap in place here while I try and put the rest of the buttons or the micro switches back in. So that'll hold that just in place right there. So if you don't put this back in, it's going to be a huge trouble for you. So we'll kind of put that in there. Next, we're going to try to remount everything, which is going to be tricky. I need to get all of these realigned. Okay, that's one. Okay, great. These guys are getting all tangled up now. There's 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. 2, 3, 4, and I want to make sure that our cap or our top part here doesn't move either. This should be up. Get in there. I've got most of it back together here. Let's see if we can get this last part. Yeah, there's something stuck. So you can see the difficulty of trying to put this thing back together is a bit more tricky than taking it apart. So like I'd mentioned, for those who just want to add grease, might be the easiest way here. For others, if you want to take it all apart, it's going to be a bit more challenging. There we go. Okay. So there it is, back together right now. So what we're going to do is put those screws back in, and if all goes well, these should be okay. Another thing that you can do too is take some pictures before you take it apart. Don't remove the wires on it, and you can see where each wire goes. You can see it's color coded here. So if you remove the wires to the micro switches, then you might be asking for even more trouble, but as long as you take a picture and you can see where the wires are going for each one of these micro switches, you should be okay as well. So it's something I didn't check, but luckily I have this video, so if I get the wires mixed around, I can go back and check it again. But there's the bottom part all situated back together. Now the top part here, what we're going to do is fill this again with some mechanical grease. And you don't have to use a whole lot, but you want to make sure that you have enough, because you know, this thing at one point in time did have quite a bit of grease in it. And this is going to help reduce any kind of wear that will occur on the inside of this bowl area. Alright, there's that. We'll put the top part back on here, and that slides around in there nicely. And then we'll get our shaft here and slide that back down. We'll get our spring, put the spring back on. Oh, this is kind of off camera here. Spring, then our spring cover. Make sure this gets in between all of the micro switches. Then when you go to put the C-clamp back down, what you're going to have to do is kind of compress this plastic part, and you're going to need either a pair of pliers or your pair of vice grips should work if you use vice grips for this too. So we'll put that down there, get our pair of pliers, and just make sure that your ring here doesn't go flying off into some strange direction. And pop that back on, make sure it's secure. Then you can release that, and you can see down here we have our joystick situated, and on the top, very, very nice feeling right now. Feels like brand new. But very nice, very clicky. So the next part, what we'll do here is we'll go ahead and reassemble everything. We'll try and clean up the bottom parts of these. maybe just a little bit, and yeah, we'll put it back together and give it a go. So see you guys in a little bit. Okay, so now we've got our stick all put back together, and one thing you might notice right off the bat is there may be some spots where it looks a bit discolored. Now these are the spots where we've used our magic eraser to try and remove some of the scratches. Don't worry, I know it may seem like it looks really rough, and it may look even, you know, in some cases you may think, wow, this looks like worse than before, you know, when I first started, but in fact it's not. What the magic eraser does is, like I said, it does discolor certain areas and it does remove the oil from it. But what you can do is, some people like to use Armor All. It depends on where you're located and if your country actually has it or not, but there are a lot of automotive kind of shining liquids that you can use on leather or upholstery, things like that. What I like to use is, for me in Japan, it's really easy to get a hold of some bicycle oil. Now this is just really light bicycle oil, but what I do is just take a little bit and put it on a rag here, and then go across the entire controller. Usually it doesn't take too much, you know, you don't want to cake it on there, but it's almost like you're painting. And some people will say like, oh, you must use this, you must use that. I don't think there's anything you have to use. It's anything. I mean, I've used WD-40 in the past, and you know, some people have said, no, never use WD-40, you know, but it worked out really well. I've used different kinds of oil, like just for like cleaning compounds for flooring and things like that, and it's worked out really well. So just make sure that you know, it's not something that's gonna remove paint or something to that extent, which bicycle oil here is no problem. And you know, I just let it sit for a little while to you know, to seep in. But like I said, everybody's got their own way. Some people like to use different cleaning agents to make theirs look a lot nicer. But this will bring the life back to all of those scratch marks and all of the warped spots on the controller that you saw at the beginning. Make it look much nicer. Like I said, it's something where you probably want to let it sit for a little while, and depending on what kind of cleaning oil or so that you're using will depend on if you touch it, you know, if you'll see fingerprints or something like that. But if you take a look at it now, our controller is all nice and sparkly. So it does not look bad at all. You can see where the scratches, the original scratches were, and that's you know, that's something that won't come out, and it's something that you can only see when the light hits it in a certain angle. You'll see some other ones, these are gouges there, but you'll notice that our label wasn't touched, and everything else seems to look quite nice. So there it is in a nutshell. That is from start to finish, kind of refurbishing and putting this thing back together, getting this thing going again. And as a final test, you know, if you wanted to make sure that it works, you could just plug it in and you know, give it a shot. But that's about all for me for right now. Like always, I'll put up another video here soon, so thanks for watching.